Hello, all, the Irrational Skeptic here, and today I am going to be doing a video on two MBTI types that I've always found fascinating. These types are both intuitives, and I've had the chance of interacting with a few of them over my lifetime. The types I'm talking about are INFJs and ENTPs. ENTPs are actually quite rare in that I've only met three or four of them in my lifetime. I myself am an INFJ, and I've probably only met one INFJ personally. Online, I've actually interacted with a few. So why I have this video titled "When an Unstoppable Force Meets an Immovable Object" um, is for a reason of analogy, using it to explain uh, something or a theory I have on intuition in general. So, first of all, I will have to note here that this statement holds no validity in logic. By definition, an unstoppable force is something that cannot be impeded by any resistance. An immovable object, let's call it object X, is akin to an unstoppable force. Let's call it object Y, because it is a force that will equally be applied to both X and Y. This is in line with Newton's third law of motion, which states for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So logically, an unstoppable force should be met with an unstoppable force and should therefore accelerate both objects in opposite directions. The immovable object can only be something that has infinite mass. Otherwise, there will be such a force that can move the object. So the statement can be more properly phrased as what happens when an infinite force pushes against an infinite mass? They will act infinitely upon one another. We can't say anything else that will happen because we'll all be dead by that time. And time here, I will say time is in quotes because it's just not feasible. Infinite masses can't act upon each other over time because time would not exist. Which is never. The answer to this question is a paradox. The premises don't make sense at all. So, coming back to the statement's use in my description of INFJ and ENTP, I am using this as a mere metaphorical tool to get a point across. In my definitions, the INFJ is the immovable object, and the ENTP is the unstoppable force. They both use intuition, which is known as the most complex of the functions. I will note that because something is complex, by no stretch of the imagination does this mean that it can never be understood or explained. So I hope I am not confused for saying that intuition will always remain a mystery. And I am not saying it won't either. So I'm not saying anything about it. Though I am saying that if any knowledge continues to remain outside the sphere of conscious thought, then this thing is the next intuition. You see? Let's say that there is an infinite amount of knowledge to be gained in an ever expanding universe. Then the things at the boundaries, which are unknown and spontaneously come into existence, are intuitive. For the extroverted intuitive, one such application comes in the form of forming new conceptions out of tangential ideas. Two seemingly unrelated ideas are found to have commonalities in the ENTP. An example is that someone sees the way their perfumes, soda cans, water kettles, and shampoo are arranged in a fashion on a table. In that image, they see how this assortment resembles buildings in New York City, the Big Apple. They then go ahead to arrange their desk to resemble a particular street in the city, And voila, they've created an intuitive depiction of the New York skyline. They may go ahead and paint the background of the wall to be blue so they can mimic the actual sky, and so on. They can get more detailed as they go, but this is extroverted intuition. They are moving physical objects and making relations with them to other physical objects, which are, of course, ideas in the form of how they think about them. Um, so, for the introverted intuitive, an application comes in the form of receiving an output in relation to any situation that is comprised of an intricate underlying theme. An example is that an introverted intuitive looks out and sees commotion in the environment. They see things moving all over the place, people running from a dangerous bomb that has been detonated, for example. And out of nowhere, the introverted intuitive tells everyone, don't run in that direction. You will be safer if you go east instead of west. Now, they usually would not have done any conscious calculations of what is going on, but they get a feeling or intuition that this is the right thing to do. This function has completed its mission if it has been able to accurately predict the outcome with, with limited conscious input from the user. So you see, the more things are happening in the background without the user's knowledge, the more sharp their intuition will be deemed. So this is a special note you have to put on it, is that for intuition to actually work properly, it has to not be clouded by conscious thought. The things have to spring up out of the unconscious, and so that they can appear in their raw form without being muddied by conscious second guessing, which is more of uh, let's say, a thinking function um, that takes conscious thought. So back to ENTP versus INFJ. Why is the ENTP an unstoppable force? Because they have a lot of horsepower, to borrow an engineering term. The amount of ideas they can generate are infinite in number. The exponential curve increases the more intricate they are able to tailor their intuitions. This is why they are great at the art of debating. It is sort of like being in a minefield and having to find the most creative ways to navigate the area. They provide premises and conclusions that are meant to be battle tested. They have backup ammunition just in case one wall of defense is taken down. They lay out previous statements that can act as future gotcha moments. Lawyers will tend to be very high in extroverted intuition. When cross examining a witness, it may seem as if they are asking random questions, but in reality, they are extracting information in the form of question and answer that can be used as Lego blocks to construct a convincing argument for why their client is not guilty. So I call the ENTP an unstoppable force because they tend to create ever new metaphysical structures out of thin air. And moving on to why the INFJ is an immovable object. This is because the introverted intuitive is primarily concerned with things that have solidified into their being. This is the type that says, I just know a lot, you know? When asked how they came to a conclusion, they may be able to sketch out an explanation, but ultimately it popped into their heads. Sometimes they're embarrassed to say that. This is due to an archaic process that culminates in conscious perceptions of the truth. These truths are, a majority of the time, and with a well developed intuition, they are scarily accurate. INFJs make excellent psychologists and counselors for this reason. They tend to be right on the money when interacting with individuals. They give an air of, hey, you seem to just know things. It's as if you know me better than I know myself sometimes. They are very in tune with their environment at an unconscious level. So when I say that this type is an immovable object, I'm speaking about their gentle nature. A good metaphor for this type that I've seen YouTuber Michael Pierce use is still waters run deep. They do not evoke uncomfortable emotions to others, but tend to silently absorb negative behavior and provide relief to their beneficiaries. They will rarely want to take credit for their accomplishments, just as a mountain does not brag about resisting the wind. It is intrinsic in the nature of the mountain that huge gusts of wind do not phase it. So, when an ENTP meets an INFJ, what happens? This tends to be a very interesting sight. The INFJ is known as a type that blends in with the people they interact with. Because the ENTP is usually so provocative, they meet someone who seems to be unfazed by their startling extroverted intuition. The INFJ may say something like, I think the reason Amy has been quiet lately is because Tom has been a little bit mean to her recently. Even if Tom is not ov- uh, being overly mean to Amy, the INFJ perceives change in the environment very easily and pinpoints exact instances where things have gone wrong. To which the ENTP may reply, oh, come on. Amy always has her mood swings, and yesterday she got some pretty bad news about her sick dog. Also, she asked for a raise at work the other day and didn't get a friendly reply. Honestly, there's probably a host of reasons why Amy might be down, and it's a little presumptuous of you to say that the sole reason is Tom's attitude towards her. Besides, Tom has always acted like a douchebag. This bombardment of assorted weaponry is typical of ENTPs. They attack you at so many points that it makes you completely immobile. You kind of ask, where do I start? With the first point or with the second point? And behind that, behind each point, they probably have a whole set of deductive reasoning going on for why that might be true. They take pride in such an ability and probably gloat at the sight of their victims not knowing what to do. But the INFJ usually remains calm in such situations. They may even take on the ENTP's battle attitude just to make a mockery out of them. A defeating statement an INFJ may use is, well, yeah, all those things are possible, but I don't think that's why Amy has been quiet lately. In this instance, I think it's because of Tom's behavior. Now, if the INFJ has done their thing correctly this time, and their thing is intuition, there is a high possibility that Amy will walk in and make a complaint about Tom in the presence of the ENTP and INFJ, to which the INFJ will probably contently, but without gloat, accept their victory. But you need to be careful here in attributing victory, um, because you have to be careful about the unstoppable force of the ENTP. They were never completely wrong because they postulated possible alternatives to the theory that the INFJ gave. They did not see what the INFJ said as an ultimate, this is going to happen reality. They saw it as one of the many possibilities. So, a hidden assumption of the ENTP is that the INFJ's singular reason is one of their many possible reasons. And it is not that they are discrediting the INFJ, even though it does really sound like that, and sometimes they are. But fundamentally, what they are telling the INFJ is to be more careful in wedging their bets on one outcome. when there could be many different reasons for an event. But what the ENTP needs to know about the INFJ is that their intuition into human factors tend to be scarily accurate. So, even if there are many other logical possibilities for an event to occur, when it involves people, the INFJ is usually right on the money. And when I say usually, I'm saying above 95%. With a well developed intuition, uh, it is far from random choice, very far from it. And if it was random choice, then the INFJ should be more wrong than right most of the time. So it is not a random process, and it has a lot of processing power behind it, even if they tend to say things casually. So you can see INFJs just say, oh yeah, I think this is going to happen. And they might not put the proof out there. And like I noted before, they don't exactly have access to the proof methods. They don't really know how they did it. And as Carl Jung, in one of his recordings, has noted, for the introverted intuitive to know how they do what they do ruins their own game. So their game is played so much in the unconscious that them not knowing how they arrived at a conclusion is very necessary for their own game. And I will end this video here. That's about, yeah, that's good enough. And I will see you all next time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave comments down below. Are you an ENTP? Are you an INFJ? Do you have anything to add or subtract, or say, hey, this is wrong, hey, this is right? Go ahead, leave it down in the comments, like the video, share with your friends, and the Irrational Skeptic here, signing off.